shame becomes a lot more toxic when people start trying to define your character based off of it. And people try to say you're no longer going to be good for the rest of your life. That's why I'm not in favor of the way that we approach dealing with people that cheated, because we've been placing this label on them that they're no longer a good man. And what's the purpose of, like, okay, fixing the problem if now, out of all these years that we've been together and we've been married or whatever, now I make this one bad decision and that defines the rest of my entire existence. Once we come across somebody and we're noticing this type of behavior, talk to them in a way that it makes them understand that this is not an indictment on you. I just don't like this thing that you did. And I know you can do better than that. Not you can be better than that, but you can do.
The generations have changed.
You were going to be called a whore than a virgin.
Yeah, even if they were having sex, they lied about it because back then it wasn't something that was glorified. So the generation and outlook on sex has changed. So therefore the behavior has changed. But one of the questions that I did have for Nelson is, we are hearing a lot in these spaces, well, bring shame back, right? Make I guess certain behaviors shameful. My question to you is, does shame work in changing behavior? Just because from my understanding, there's a difference between shame and conviction. And typically when you have conviction, that helps with changing the behavior, whereas shame can create more negative outcomes. So I just kind of wanted to know your opinion on, do shame and behavior work in changing the behavior?
So I'm in favor of shame, actually, because there's shame and there's also toxic shame. So shame, I look at it as that can be a righteous thing. That can be when you know you've done something wrong and somebody else points it out to you, you feel ashamed. And that shame lasts for a certain amount of time, and then you pick yourself up and you dust yourself off and you go and strive to be better. That if you take away the shame part of that, then you're going to do something wrong. You're not going to be held accountable for it. There's no repercussion to it. So you're more likely to repeat the same behavior. The shame becomes a lot more toxic when people start trying to define your character based off of it. And people try to say you're no longer going to be good for the rest of your life. That's why I'm not in favor of the way that we approach dealing with people that cheated, because we've been placing this label on them that they're no longer a good man. And what's the purpose of, like, okay, fixing the problem if now, out of all these years that we've been together and we've been married or whatever, now I make this one bad decision and that defines the rest of my entire existence. So I feel like shame has good places, but the way that we, of course, in our community, the way we really utilize shame is in that very toxic way.
I guess that's what I was getting at, because a lot of times what I see or hear is that, shame is a negative emotion, that not negative emotion, but in terms of action that attacks the person. You know what I'm saying? And just from my understanding of the way that works, when somebody keeps telling you you're bad, right?
Yeah.
That typically the behavior begins to match what people say, because you begin to see yourself as
just
bad.
a baby mama anyway.
So then it's like, well, forget it. I'm already bad. I'm not, worthy. I'm not this. I'm not that. And then you continue the bad behavior. So what is a healthy way, I guess, if we're going to use the word shame, what is a healthy way to do that? So a person could see that there's a point in redemption. Because in these spaces, when you hear guys talk, oh, well, you already had a baby and now you're trying to close your legs and not have sex. Once you have a kid with somebody, you can't go back to not having sex. It's not like you're a virgin. You got to give it to them. You know what I'm saying? So
Give it out for free.
right. So for me, what's a good way, or the way that we can use shame to truly change the behavior in a positive way?
Just off the top of my head, I would think that separating the behavior from the character attachment would be a big thing to do. A lot of times we do attach, something negative happens, we make a judgment on this person's character instead of making that type of character judgment after a distinct pattern of something happening. So once we come across somebody and we're noticing this type of behavior, talk to them in a way that it makes them understand that this is not an indictment on you. I just don't like this thing that you did. And I know you can do better than that. Not you can be better than that, but you can do. Just give them don't give a person a one-shot deal, like this one thing defines your existence. But that's way easier said than done. Look at just happened with Kyrie Irving. Like this is the way our society is kind of now built. Is we'll find text messages or screenshots from 20 years ago and use it against you, no matter what you've done up into your life to define who you are now. Right. That's kind of the way we're made up now. Mm-hmm. And we have to get away from that. And I'm not sure as a community what we can do to all get on the same page, because we're always looking for a savior. We're always looking for somebody to look to guide us and do these things. And the people that have really been appointed as the people that are really supposed to be like the best in our community, our best and brightest, are the most corrupt, the worst character having people that we can have. We have, who do we have? We have Jamal, something, that pastor that decides he wants to impregnate all these different women. We have Al Sharpton, who is a corrupt politician. We have LeBron James, who is a narcissist. Everybody that's lifted up in our community have very distinct negative aspects to their character, and we're being taught that this is what it looks like to be successful. We need to redefine our heroes.
So this just crossed my mind. I feel like if you are a young woman with no kids, you didn't get like your parents didn't talk to you about instilling values. You may deal with some self-esteem issues, and now you're out here in the dating world, right? What advice would you give this young woman? Because I feel like a lot of women who become single mothers are women with low self-esteem, because they don't know their value. They don't value their body. They don't protect themselves because they are giving something to a man to show their loyalty, worth, or love, because they don't know how to show it in a more healthy way. So what would you say for a young woman who's probably lost, who's probably has low self-esteem, has no self-worth, and how does she handle herself out in the world with men?
I'm a real big proponent of studying men, studying the way we think, studying the way we behave, and the true things that we actually evaluate women on. Because even inside of a young men, our minds, you mentioned boundaries earlier, and for men, a lot of times having sex without a condom is actually important, because that condom represents a barrier in relationship.
Yep.
So there's a whole lot stronger of a connection when she lets me go in raw.
Thank you for saying
that. And she lets me climax inside of her. With that, even when you're just getting to know a young lady, for a lot of men, I'm going to try my best to have sex with her as quick as I can, because that's the easiest way for me to determine if she actually has feelings for me. Because I know once she gives her body up that I have her. So a lot of times that is the first thing that we go for. So understanding, I think for a lot of young women need to understand that inside of a lot of men, and understand when they're getting game ran on them, because there are so many good young men out there that do not think like that, that really take the time and sit and talk with you and want to learn about you, and are ambitious and things like that, but they get overlooked because they're missing a certain, that maybe they're short, maybe they're a little chubby. We focus so much on the outward appearance before actually investing inside the character. Those things need to be reversed, and I think there's actually a lot of good things happening now inside of schools, where there's programs that are being introduced to our kids that are teaching them these things, that are providing them with counseling and different types of services. I think that as a community, we need to learn what these programs are and start investing in them as our own communities, because anywhere else, these corporations and outside entities that are giving services to our kids, they are not looking for, they're not looking out for their best interest. We have to decide collectively as a community what's in our best interest, and then implement it ourselves.
That's good. I'm glad you brought up the whole like barrier thing, because I felt like I was kind of like, am I making sense when I was saying how women have to prove themselves? Like, look, I'm taking the barrier away. Look, I'll allow you to do this, because a lot of women feel like if they take the barrier away, that's showing the man that we're closer. I love you. I trust you with everything in my body, because I'm allowing you to be inside of me unprotected. And a lot of women, oh my God, this is another one I've heard before, where a woman was like, I got pregnant by him and he don't want the baby and he's mad. But if he didn't want to get me pregnant, why would he come inside of me? So there's a lot of women who feel like,
because it feels amazing. I mean, that's some of these things are kind of obvious, like
yeah, but listen to this is what a lot of women really think. Like, I understand from a male's perspective, but you guys got to hear what women think.
Women think that if a man is coming inside of them, you're basically telling us you want us to have your baby, you want us to be your wife, you want to be connected to us forever and ever. That is what men are telling women. Well, that's how we're translating that.
And I think
I'm sorry. Can I just say one thing? I think that may be some women.
Not every woman, but a lot of women do think like that.
I think a lot of women, I think the opposite. I think a lot of women are, and I don't want to say like men in that regard, but what I mean is just being irresponsible. A lot of times it's about getting caught up in a moment. You hot, you heavy, everything is feeling good, and then it's just like, F it.
I'm not.
I disagree.
You got married so young, so you haven't been out in these streets to know what women are actually thinking. Like, you're just taking it from like, it's irresponsible. Yes, it's irresponsible, but this is the conversations I hear women say. Well, if he didn't want to have a baby with me, why was he always coming inside of me? So yeah.
And I think too, just like there are women who don't mind having sex casually, they just throw it out. Yes, to them, it doesn't mean anything. It has no meaning to it. Yeah. But there's some women who they have sex, they don't have it, just everybody, and then they find that one person, and then they trust that guy to be, because those women do exist as well. And they trust that guy, and they're thinking, oh, well, because I've even heard it from friends, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, girl, he's not used to, and they feel like that means something.
They mean that
they're men, because we have these spaces now, we hear it doesn't, but there are women.
The example that we just had with the woman with the 5 kids, right? So, I mean, I don't know if all her kids are by the same father or not, but whether it was or it wasn't, at what point did she get the message
Right. No, we're not
not
disagreeing with you. We're saying that there are women who sleep like that, but to say that they're a majority, yeah, there are we call them slut. There's women who just the JJ for everybody. We hear them on the panel. Don't take it. We can't close our legs. It ain't gonna happen because we feel it too. We like sex just as much as you. You know, those are those women, okay? But we know there are other women who value their vaginas.
Yeah,
they do. You know, and so we can't say that they're all these women. Though there are different types of women. We understand that there are women who just don't care, but there are also women who are in these long-term relationships, are in these relationships. They think that it means something. They feel like if he's not using a condom, that means something, you know, and it ends up getting them in trouble.